You're floating in space. In front of you is a black hole, and it's beautiful. This swirling, impossible thing that doesn't just pull light towards it, it erases it completely. And here's what nobody tells you about black holes: you don't feel yourself being pulled in. Not at first. Everything seems fine. You're just drifting, slowly, comfortably. And then one day, you try to leave, and you realize you can't. Now, let me tell you something that should genuinely disturb you. Right now, on the device you're holding or the screen you're staring at, 5 companies have built something with exactly the same physics, the same invisible pull, the same point of no return. And the terrifying part isn't that they did it. The terrifying part is that you crossed their event horizon a long time ago. You just didn't feel it because they made it feel like convenience. Google, Amazon, Meta, Apple, Microsoft. In the last 20 years, these companies have quietly swallowed more of human life than any empire in history. More than Rome, more than the British crown at its height, more than the church at the peak of its power. And they didn't do it with armies or taxes or force. They did it by making themselves useful. So useful that you invited them in. So useful that you handed over your attention, your data, your habits, your children's habits, and called it progress. But a black hole doesn't just trap things, it bends everything around it. Time, space. Reality itself warps near a black hole. And that is exactly, precisely, what these companies are doing to our economy, our democracy, our minds, and the world that comes after us. So let's go in, all the way in. Because once you see the event horizon for what it is, you cannot unsee it. And it starts with something so ordinary, so familiar, that you've probably never stopped to question it once in your life. Here's a question nobody ever thinks to ask. Why didn't this happen with the telephone, or the railroad, or the television? All of those were world-changing technologies. All of them made enormous companies. But none of them became black holes. So, why these 5? Why now? The answer is something called the network effect. And it is, quietly, the single most dangerous force in the history of capitalism. Think of it this way. A telephone with 1 user is completely useless. 2 users, okay, there's something there. 1 million users, it starts to feel essential. 1 billion users, it becomes reality. You can't opt out. You have to be on the network because everyone you know already is. That's not a product anymore. That's gravity. Facebook figured this out in a college dorm. Google figured it out in a rented garage. And once each of them crossed the threshold, once enough people were inside, something irreversible clicked into place. Every new user made the platform more valuable. Every piece of data made the algorithm sharper. Every dollar of profit funded more engineers to make it stickier. The loop became self-sustaining, unstoppable, like a star collapsing in on itself under its own weight. Astronomers call that moment gravitational collapse. The point when a star's core gets so dense that nothing, not even light, can escape. Tech economists call it winner-take-all dynamics. But unlike a real black hole, these companies don't just sit there. They actively recruit more mass. They run ads. They poach your favorite creators. They build the infrastructure that every business needs to function, so that opting out stops being inconvenient and starts being impossible. At their peak, these 5 companies were worth more than the combined GDP of every country on Earth, except the United States and China. They didn't just grow large, they achieved escape velocity. But gravity is only the beginning, because what a black hole does after it forms, that's where things get truly dark. In space, a black hole creates what's called an accretion disk, a swirling ring of matter being slowly, inevitably spiraled inward and consumed. Stars, gas clouds, entire planetary systems. Everything nearby gets caught in the spiral and pulled apart. Tech giants do the exact same thing. They just call it strategic acquisition. Between 2000 and 2020, the 5 major tech giants made over 770 acquisitions. Not features, not products, companies. Human beings who built something real. Instagram was growing too fast. Facebook bought it for $1 billion before it could breathe. WhatsApp had 450 million users and zero serious revenue. Facebook paid $19 billion for it. Not because it was profitable, but because leaving it independent was a risk they weren't willing to take. Google bought YouTube in 2006 for $1.65 billion. Everyone thought it was madness. Today, YouTube alone generates over $30 billion a year, more than the entire global music industry. And when they can't buy, they copy. Instagram's Stories feature was lifted almost directly from Snapchat. Released just months after Facebook's acquisition offer to Snapchat was rejected. Amazon identified which third-party sellers on its own platform were doing well, launched Amazon Basics versions of their exact products, and then buried those sellers in the search results. Big tech didn't just buy competition, it ate the idea of competition. Research shows that big tech absorbs a new company roughly every 11 days, and 67% of those companies simply vanish. Websites gone, teams disbanded, roadmaps shelved. Not because the ideas were bad, but because absorbing a threat was cheaper, faster, and cleaner than competing with it. And the most quietly devastating part? Most founders wanted to be acquired, because inside the gravity well, there's capital, there's distribution, there's a platform that can reach billions of people overnight. It feels warm, it feels like winning, it feels like the finish line, until they realize they've crossed the event horizon. But what happens to the things the black hole doesn't swallow whole? The industries it simply passes through. That's where this becomes a story about all of us. There's a word in astrophysics that I think about more than I probably should. Spaghettification. It's exactly what it sounds like. When an object falls into a black hole, the gravitational pull at the near side is so much stronger than at the far side that the object gets stretched, elongated, pulled into a long, thin strand, like pasta, until it finally snaps. Scientists actually use this term, and it is a perfect description of what big tech has done to entire industries, and to us. Take journalism. 20 years ago, a local newspaper employed hundreds of journalists. It covered City Hall. It held police departments accountable. It told you what was happening in your own neighborhood. Imperfect, yes, but it was one of the foundational structures of a functioning democracy. Then Google and Facebook discovered they could aggregate all that reporting, serve it to users for free, and pocket all of the advertising revenue, while paying the people who actually produced it essentially nothing. More than 2,500 American newspapers have closed since 2005. The ones still alive are stretched impossibly thin. Fewer reporters, cheaper stories, more clickbait. Not because journalism became worse at what it does, but because the economics of it were warped beyond recognition. The content keeps flowing into the black hole. The money just never comes back out. Retail. Same story. Small businesses that once defined Main Street now exist entirely at Amazon's pleasure. When Amazon adjusts its fees, and it does regularly, thousands of businesses feel it immediately, with no warning, no negotiation, and no appeal. You're not running your own business anymore. You are orbiting someone else's gravity. And then there's your attention. You open a feed, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, and from that moment, you are not browsing. The algorithm is browsing you. It watches how long you pause, what you replay, the precise speed at which your thumb moves before it slows. And within minutes, not hours, minutes, it builds a model of you more accurate than any therapist, any partner, any friend. A digital twin that knows exactly what will keep you hooked. Not informed, not enriched, not happy, hooked. The average person checks their phone over 90 times a day. That is not usage. That is orbit. But attention and data are only the fuel. What these systems are doing with that fuel, right now, at this scale, is what changes everything about the world we're living in. At the very center of a black hole is the singularity. The point where the laws of physics, as we understand them, completely break down. Nothing works the way it should. The rules that govern the rest of the universe simply don't apply there. And these companies have reached their own singularity. The moment they became so large, so embedded, so essential, that they started reshaping the rules that were supposed to govern them. Facebook ran a secret internal program called XCheck, a whitelist that silently exempted millions of high-profile users, politicians, celebrities, major influencers, from the platform's own content moderation rules. The same rules that got ordinary people suspended or banned didn't apply to the people with enough gravity to bend them. Meanwhile, the company's own researchers were documenting that Instagram was causing serious psychological harm to teenage girls. The research was buried, the product kept running, because engagement was up. Google's advertising empire simultaneously controls the exchange where ads are bought and sold, the tools that sellers use to sell, and the tools that buyers use to buy. Picture a stock exchange that also acts as the broker for every buyer and every seller, all at once, and charges fees on every side of every transaction. US courts have already ruled this constitutes an illegal monopoly. Amazon collects detailed sales data from the millions of independent sellers on its platform, data those sellers generate simply by doing business there, and uses it to decide which products to manufacture and compete directly against those very sellers. It is their landlord, their marketplace, their delivery network, and their fiercest competitor simultaneously. And they have nowhere else to go. And then there is democracy. These platforms now determine what information reaches more voters than any newspaper, television network, or political party in history. When the algorithm chooses to amplify or suppress a story, and it does billions of times a day, that is not a technical decision. It is a political act made by a system whose internal logic no elected government on earth fully understands or controls. The rules are bending, and they bend only in one direction, towards the singularity. Which brings us, finally, to the thing this entire journey has been quietly building towards. The revelation at the center of all of this. Here is something Stephen Hawking discovered that turned physics upside down. For a long time, scientists assumed black holes were permanent, eternal, absolute. Once something crossed the event horizon, it was gone, forever. The end. But Hawking proved something extraordinary. Black holes evaporate, unimaginably slowly, over timescales that dwarf the age of the universe. But they do. The event horizon is not permanent. The gravity is not infinite. And crucially, a black hole's power depends entirely on one thing: how much mass it keeps consuming. The moment that intake slows, the physics begins to reverse. We are the mass. Every search, every click, every post, every purchase made through a platform instead of a local shop, every hour of attention surrendered to a feed. That is the matter flowing into the accretion disk. That is what generates the gravity. And that means the most important thing anyone has said in this entire conversation is this: we are not powerless inside the gravity well. We are the gravity well. This isn't wishful thinking. The European Union's Digital Markets Act is already forcing Apple to allow third-party app stores on iPhones for the first time in history. Courts in the United States have ruled Google holds an illegal monopoly in online search. Regulatory bodies across India, Australia, Japan, and the UK are moving. Slowly, yes, but they're moving. And history is clear about what happens next. IBM looked unbreakable in 1975. Microsoft looked unbreakable in 1999. MySpace felt permanent in 2007. Every black hole looks eternal, right up until the moment it doesn't. The companies that replace today's giants will almost certainly emerge from outside the existing gravity wells, from open source AI no single corporation controls, from decentralized networks built on different economics, from people who simply decided the platform's cut was too high and built something new. The collapse is not inevitable, but neither is the status quo. But before you leave feeling hopeful, there is one last thing to sit with. And it's uncomfortable. Genuinely. The reason these black holes are so difficult to escape is not manipulation or addiction psychology or even network lock-in. It is that they genuinely improve our lives. Google Maps gets you where you're going. Amazon gets you what you need in 2 days. Instagram keeps you connected to people you actually love. The convenience is real. The value is real. Most of us, including me, are not willing to give it up entirely, and there's no shame in that. But the trade-off is also real, and it is far less visible than the benefit. You are not Google's customer, you are its product. Your health searches, your location at every hour of the day, your political leanings inferred from reading patterns, your emotional state predicted from your typing speed, All of it is being packaged, refined, and sold with a precision that would have seemed like science fiction 20 years ago. The cities these companies call home have some of the most extreme inequality in housing unaffordability on the planet. And the attention economy, left to its own logic, has one structural incentive: keep you engaged longer. Fear engages longer than joy. Outrage engages longer than understanding. Tribalism engages longer than nuance. The feed is not neutral. It cannot be. So here is the hardest truth of all. We did not just let these black holes form, we built them. Click by click, search by search, like by like. Every time we chose easy over independent, every time we agreed to terms we never read, every time we handed over one more piece of ourselves in exchange for one more moment of frictionless convenience, we were feeding the singularity. Understanding that sitting with it, really sitting with it, is not a reason to despair. It is the only possible starting point for doing something different. Here is what I want to leave you with. A black hole doesn't know it's a black hole. It has no malice, no grand design, no agenda against the stars it consumes. It pulls because that is simply what its nature demands of it. And the people who built Google and Amazon and Meta, most of them started as idealists. People who genuinely believed they were making the world more connected, more open, more free. In many real ways, they did. But the machine they built has a gravity of its own now, a logic that even its architects cannot fully control or reverse. And yet, the universe found a way to exist alongside black holes. Galaxies don't die because of them. They form around them. Stars are born in their shadow. Life, somehow, impossibly, keeps finding a way. The next time you feel that pull, that familiar, almost unconscious urge to open an app you didn't plan to open, to scroll for just a few more minutes, to click on just one more thing, pause. Just for a second. Ask yourself one honest question. Did I choose this? Or did something choose it for me? Because the distance between using technology and being used by it is smaller than it feels. And once you start noticing it, truly noticing it, something shifts. You can't go back to not seeing it. If this changed how you see the screen in your hand, even a little, share it with one person in your life who's always on their phone. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these companies has the strongest gravitational pull on you personally? I read all your comments. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this, the kind that quietly rearrange the furniture in your head, then hitting subscribe or following me is how you make sure you don't miss the next one. It takes 1 second and it means a lot. Go look at a real star tonight. It's the only thing in the universe their gravity hasn't reached. Not yet.